Hi, I'm Jerome Henry. I'm a wireless instructor here at Fastlane. I'm CCIE Wireless, and I'm teaching the CCIE Wireless Bootcamp. The CCIE Wireless Bootcamp is quite an intense bootcamp. It's a 5-day course where we cover everything you need to know to face the lab. So we start with the autonomous access points, and then we go into the controller-based solution, security, troubleshooting, site survey, every exercise you need to know to be ready for the real bootcamp. Preparing for the CCIE Wireless Bootcamp is not easy because if you read the blueprint, you'll see a lot of topics, and it's not very easy to find what exactly you need to know in which of those fields. So what we do in the bootcamp is that we go through each of those blueprint topics and we teach you what is the Cisco way of achieving the goals that are listed there. So we start from the autonomous access point, how to configure the autonomous access point with bridging, repeaters, all the configurations and advanced tunings that you may think about. Then we go into the controller-based solution. We make sure you know each and every single way of having your access point get to the controllers, communicate between controllers, manage the network from the OCS, then of course perform all the security tasks, with the ACS and all the tools that you'll be working with in the lab. Also, the wired infrastructure is something you need to be very efficient on. You need to know how to configure routing, switching to a certain level. So what we try to show you in this bootcamp is all the techniques that will make your day easy on the day of the lab, in the sense that you'll be faster, performing faster, and you'll be able to coordinate the tasks so that you will know which ones are to be performed from the CLI, which ones are to be performed from the WCS, which ones are to be performed from the web interface, which tasks you can combine together, which things you need to do first in the morning, which things you need to keep for the afternoon so that you can organize your time and be more efficient. I often get the question, how do you prepare for that bootcamp? Well, basically, it's almost as asking how do you prepare for the lab if you were on your own. The first thing you want to do is to read the controller configuration guide, the wireless LAN controller configuration guide that you find on cisco.com, and make sure you know how to configure each and every single item in that configuration guide. You also want to read the autonomous access point configuration guide and make sure here again that you know how to configure each and every single item. Once you're comfortable with that, you can get to the bootcamp and enjoy the experience, because you do not want the bootcamp to be a learning experience. You want to know things before coming to the bootcamp. What you want to be in the bootcamp is at a level where you'll be able to learn how to be faster, how to be more efficient, how to solve those little things that you've never figured out, but you don't want to learn from scratch. So you want to prepare yourself as much as you can by reading all those configuration guides beforehand. You have to be aware that the bootcamp is an intensive course. It's 5 days, but each of these days is going to be between 8 hours if you are pretty advanced, but it can be 10, 12, 14 hours of work every single day. But it's the only way you got to be ready for the lab. It's because you're bringing it during the bootcamp and you're working to solve all these issues. But I see a lot of people just working themselves out in the bootcamp because they come unprepared, they do not know how to configure the basic things, and they rely on the bootcamp to teach them how to do that. We can do it, but you're going to waste a lot of time. If you prepare in advance, then on the day of the bootcamp, you're going to go through the tasks as the day goes, and at the end of the day, after working 8 or 10 hours, you probably want to take a break. Forget about everything for an hour or two, then come back and then redo the tasks that you discovered new ways of performing during the day, or tasks that were difficult for you and that you found how to optimize them during that day. That way, for each and every single day, you'll be doing a sort of summary, a sort of reminder of what you want to remember from that day. That way, at the end of the week, you'll be more efficient and well prepared to carry on after the bootcamp. At the end of the bootcamp on day 5, which is Friday typically, there is a simulated lab. And what we do here, it's a funny exercise. It's an 8-hour lab, which is very close to the type of format you will have in the real lab. And the great advantage is that after having spent 4 days working on individual tasks, you are going to bring it all together and try to work against the clock to perform all the tasks, which are labeled pretty much the way you'll find them in the real lab, in the sense that it's not telling you, I want this configuration. It's going to describe issues and asking you to solve these issues. And this is a very interesting exercise because it prepares you to be able to manage a 30 to 40 page document within a very limited time, 8 hours, and be able to go as far, as fast as you can to be able to complete all those tasks exactly as they are labeled, not exactly as you think they should be, but exactly as they are labeled. This is a very interesting exercise, and at the end of that day, we do a debrief of the lab bootcamp, and typically that saves you one attempt in the lab, because instead of having to pay for a real lab to discover all the things you'll be discovering on that day, you'll be discovering them on the last day of the bootcamp, and you'll be more ready to face the real lab. Then, once the bootcamp is over, you want to carry on working on your own. This is very important, because at the end of that week, you'll be ready in your mind to take the lab, but your lab will probably not be the next day. So what you'll need to do is to carry on practicing what you learned during this bootcamp so that your fingers maintain their speed and you don't have to think over how each and every task is performed. You'll be ready to be fast during the lab. So you need to, just like you learn biking and you keep biking every day just to maintain your shape, it's exactly the same here. You want to maintain your shape by practicing the exercises that are more challenging for you, so that when you get to the lab, you will never have to think, how do I do that again? It's going to be automatic. You'll be, as we say in the bootcamp, you'll be performing the labs in your sleep. You'll be performing the lab without thinking about how this is done. And that will allow you to get a broader picture on what things are interacting with one another in the lab, instead of trying to figure out how each task is being performed. One of the big issues in that lab, in the CCIE wireless lab, is the hardware. You're looking at something like $100,000 worth of equipment in the lab. So preparing for that is quite challenging if you don't have the possibility to buy all these tools. But one of the good things about this bootcamp is that we built it with that in mind. When you leave the bootcamp, you have a workbook which allows you to work 95% of the tasks of the lab with just one controller and 2 access points. And you can perform 95% of those just with that equipment, which is something you probably can afford or rent from somewhere. Then maybe a few days or a few weeks before your lab, if you want to work with a larger equipment, the entire gear, then you can rent some lab space, but you'll need to rent that for just 1 or 2 days. You won't need to work for a month with all that equipment. One of the most common questions I get is, why should I go to a bootcamp? You know, why don't I practice at my own pace with my own equipment, my own workbook? What is the added value? And basically the idea is, if you work on your own, you'll be able to get to the level where you're ready to perform the tasks. But in the bootcamp, we'll show you the Cisco way. Because for each and every single task, you may have 3 or 4 ways of performing each of them. And it's very difficult to know which way is the right way, and in which circumstances, in which phrasing you'll recognize which way is the right way to choose. And that's something that the bootcamp will give you. Also, if you've been working in wireless or any advanced level, you probably have those little things that you could never figure out. You know, you've been working on those and they never work exactly the way you think they should. If you work on your own, you may stick to that level and face the day of the lab with some items you're not completely comfortable with. Whereas in the bootcamp, you'll be able to interact with other people who've been working on the same things as you did, and an instructor who will be helping you solving those issues and explain to you why it doesn't work, or why the way you do it or you did it doesn't work the way Cisco wants it. So getting a bootcamp is getting immediate answers and getting a faster way of finding the right configuration for the day of the lab.